can't guide someone into a settled nervous system if you haven't gone there yourself, because their system isn't listening to your words, their system is listening to you. And yet, how many times have you tried to say that perfect grounding thing in session, all while your own body was bracing or numb or just checked out? Those moments where you're present in theory, I guess, but not in your nervous system. That's where so many of us get stuck. Real quick, hi, I'm Dr. Jenny Hughes, founder of the Brave Trauma Therapist Collective. And I totally know what it's like to walk out of a session disoriented, trained, wondering, what the hell just happened? And I know that I am not the only one. Tell me below, just say, me too, if you've been there. And this is why I am so grateful to share this conversation with Lynn Fraser. She is a trauma survivor, she's a senior meditation teacher, and founder of the Stillpoint method of healing trauma. Lynn brings decades of wisdom on what it really means to feel safe in your body again, and how we, as therapists, can only help our clients co regulate if we know how to stay with ourselves first. This conversation isn't about doing it perfectly. It's about learning what presence actually feels like and how to return to it again and again. Hey, welcome. I'm so excited to be speaking with Lynn Fraser. She is a senior teacher in the Himalayan yoga meditation tradition and the founder of the Stillpoint method of healing trauma. And we're going to be talking all about somatics, somatic healing, and she's going to share her gifts with us today. So, welcome, Lynn. I'm so grateful to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me, Jenny. I'm happy to be here.
What else can we tell the audience quickly about you and your work before we dive into our topic here?
Well, I think part of it is, it's so interesting how we get to where we are. And there's been so much new to learn about trauma in the last 10, 15 years for sure. And also about complex PTSD or developmental trauma. So I've been affected by both of those. And in 2005, I was physically assaulted when I was riding my bicycle to work, and
Mm.
I was diagnosed with PTSD. And at the time, I would say that, and people go, "What's PTSD?" Because nobody knew what it was, or if they did know something, it was all, "Well, you in the military?" Like, that was really all most people knew about it. And if you look at
Mhm.
that now, most people know what PTSD is, but we also know what complex PTSD is, CPTSD, and we also have a real interest in, and whether you're a therapist or you're doing the kind of work that I do, or whether you're working as a coach, it's really well understood now that we have to include the body in our healing.
Yes.
And when that happened to me, I went to Vancouver for a trip shortly after that, and I was looking for resources in a bookstore, and the only book I could find was Peter Levine's Healing the Tiger. And it's a
Mm.
great book, but now, I mean, you could find 5,000 books on trauma,
Mhm.
right? And so
That's
this,
also a dense book.
yes, yes, yeah, yeah,
So, for someone who's just experienced a traumatic event, for
right,
that to be like the
yeah.
the first resource, that's really going for it.
And the only resource,
I
really.
know it's not
Yeah,
an easy
yeah.
read,
It's
like
not an
even
easy
for
read.
therapists and trauma professionals. So good on you of getting through
There is,
it.
well, what I did bring to that was I had been meditating for 12 years at that time. And so I had gotten to know my nervous system, although we didn't talk about the nervous system, but I'd gotten to know what was going on in my body. I could feel sensations and energy. And I also was pretty good at witnessing thoughts in my mind. So I would be noticing all of these things that were happening. And I knew how to breathe. I knew how to do some gentle yoga. But the psychologist I work with was right out of school and had learned and knew a lot about PTSD and told me that's what it was that I had. But she also said the most important thing that you need to do is give your body experiences of safety.
Mm.
So a lot of people would say, including the police who came to the scene, said, get back on your bike, ride your bike to work, or you'll never ride your bike to work again. And I'm like, and the therapist said, no, no, that's not the right choice. So if you're a first responder or a police officer, you have to kind of push yourself through that.
Yeah.
But really, in order to heal, we need to create safety.
Mhm.
And I've worked with that over the last several years in different ways. As a meditation teacher, I know a lot about the mind. I know a lot about people's compulsive thinking, the catastrophic thoughts, the ruminating, partly because I saw all of that in my own mind. And
Mhm.
then I also saw that I could get better.
Mm.
So, at one point I would just be really taken over by catastrophic thinking. And that just doesn't happen anymore.
Mhm.
I might notice there's a little coming in, but I notice it right away. And then I know what to do with that. So I think, that incident 20 years ago really started me off on this healing trauma journey. And the meditation and yoga were a good foundation for that. And then,
Absolutely. That awareness, that kind of self-noticing and the being with one's
yeah,
self and one's internal experiences, it's so important and it's so difficult for many people.
yes,
I just did this in a session, but I have a clip from Inside Out that I like to show people,
that's a
adults
great
and
movie.
kids. But it's the clip where Bing Bong is the magic rocket thing just got like pushed over the edge into the cliff where like all the memories go to die, and Bing Bong
Yeah,
is crying candy. And Joy is trying to distract him. And she's like, it's okay. Don't worry. It's going to be fine. We're going to get to headquarters.
yeah.
And then Sadness comes in and just sits right next to him. And
Mm,
she is just with him in it, right?
mhm,
And doesn't try and change it.
right,
And that is when Bing Bong is able to, I talk about like metabolize, move through whatever that emotion is there. Nothing was solved, nothing was
right,
fixed, but then he was able to move through it because it was witnessed, because they sat with it. And then they got on the train of thought to headquarters, right?
right.
And showing this clip can be so powerful to people, especially who feel like they need to fix things, who don't have those experiences that you have of being able to witness and be with your brain and
Mm,
body and nervous system.
mhm,
Because it's just freaking scary. And we're not taught how to
it
do
is.
that or encouraged it to do that.
That's true. And, Gabor Mate, who's such a good resource on trauma, one of the quotes that I've used for probably 10 years is one of the effects, first of all, trauma is not what happened to you, it's what happens inside of you as a result
Mhm.
of what happened to you. But that one of the effects of trauma is that we disconnect from ourselves, our sense of value, and from the present moment.
Mhm.
And so that's kind of we can reverse engineer that back to healing, basically, then, right?
Mhm.
But then why do we feel so afraid to be in our body? It's because trauma is stored in our body.
Yep.
And when we go into our body, then we're often flashed back into memory. And so that's a big part of being able to heal is we have to have some capacity to know that I'm here in this present moment. I'm not back there.
Yep.
I'm here and I can look around the room. I can hold my own hands. I can stabilize. I can look at my, notice my breath. I can do all of those things to let my nervous system know that I'm safe. I think that's the most important thing of
Yep.
all. And it's hard to do that because lots of times people say, well, the world is not safe.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going to happen. I feel safe right now in my house, but somebody could break in or, so we have all of those worst case scenarios that the nervous system likes to go, well, what if this happens?
Mhm.
But in this very specific moment, am I safe enough to be here? And the answer is not if I'm going to get dragged back into traumatic memory. But
Right.
if I have, and that's, I think, where the therapeutic help really comes in, whether it's a therapist or it's a friend or somebody who can say, right now, let's just breathe together. Right
Mhm.
now, let's just stay with this like Sad did. And
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
the key. And so I think most of us don't have those experiences that it's safe enough to be in our body. And so how can we foster that? How can we cultivate that experience?
Yep.
And that's a big job.
It certainly is.
Yeah.
Tell
Most of
me
us can't do
more.
that ourselves. Most of us
Say
can't do
that.
it ourselves.
Yeah, no,
We need
exactly.
help. Yeah. And
And that's another thing that, so many of the leaders in the field of trauma are now finally getting that message out and across more widely, that healing happens in relationship, right?
yes.
And also that trauma is inherently isolating.
Yeah.
And so we have to be in relationship for that healing to really happen, to take hold, to be able to generalize and move across contexts.
Yes, yes. And to mention another book that and another teacher that I therapist who I've learned so much from is Pete Walker and his books Complex PTSD from Surviving to Thriving.
Mm.
He's got some on emotions. He's got a real really deep understanding. So the CPTSD book is pretty dense, I'll admit that. But I interviewed him, other people, Rick Hansen interviewed him. So there are some resources where you can just hear him talk, which is very helpful. And we have to find a way to understand what's happening, which is actually pretty simple. We
Mhm.
have a nervous system that wants us to be alive, and it has a negativity bias. It likes to bring in everything from the past to predict the future. A lot of what it brings in are things that happened as a child. So they're not actually as devastating now as they were then, but we need to be able to know what it is that our nervous system is using as evidence.
Mhm.
And so if we can do that, and then there's so many great things like breathing, relaxing our body, being in our body, and we can do that by hugging our pet. We can do that in so many different ways. And I love all of the resources now. 5 years ago, when I would talk about the nervous system, people would be like, yeah, whatever, you know? And now
Right.
on social media, there's like tons of different on Instagram. This is how the brain works. This is how the nervous system works. It's great because
Yeah.
people can actually start to understand it. And as a therapist, if we can stay present and in our own body and breathing and regulated, most people haven't had the opportunity to be around someone who's regulated,
Mhm.
especially
Yep.
when they're going through something that they're bringing up. It's a real
So,
blessing.
what do you recommend to therapists to help them? Because what you're saying is so important, right? It's okay to be activated by the work we're doing with our clients, and we need to be able to be with ourselves so we can be with our client. There's all these layers of the relationship, the connection, the attunement, and so
Yeah.
it's not to pretend like it's not happening or to block it off,
Mhm.
but to notice it, right? To
Yeah.
do what we need to metabolize and move through so that we can remain with our clients.
Right.
So, what are some of your recommendations for therapists?
Well, I think it starts way before you're sitting with the client.
Mm.
So to do something every day to work with your nervous system. Most people who've had experiences with harm have a tight body, our shoulders come up around our ears, and we hold our breath. So that's
Mhm.
a really great place to start. Work with your breath. So diaphragmatic breath is we use the diaphragm muscle, which feels like on the exhale, the belly softens. That can feel pretty vulnerable too.
Mhm.
It's smooth and continuous, so we're not holding our breath. It's through the nose, and it's about the same length on the inhale as the exhale. So establishing that, and that's something that I established within the first couple of years of doing meditation. So I had that established already, which was
Mhm.
very helpful. But establishing that as a regular breath, and then learning some practices that help us to settle and to come back if we get activated by something. So cyclic sighing, physiological sighing is something that I learned a couple years ago. It is such a powerful practice. Are you
I
familiar
don't know
with
if
it?
I've heard of it. No.
Oh, okay. So it's we can maybe just do it for a minute if you
Yeah,
want.
I'd love to.
Yeah. So you breathe in twice through your nose and then out through your mouth like you're breathing out through a straw.
Okay.
So breathing in.
Like this with my mouth, like
Yeah,
make
so
a
you
circle
purse
with
your
my
lips
mouth.
and then yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So take an out breath and then breathe in and then again and then out through your mouth. And then let the exhalation really continue. So quite like you're breathing through a thin straw. So
Okay.
inhale through your nose and again. And just let that go. And then as you're doing it, this is from Andrew Huberman at Stanford University, had done some research this practice was more effective in calming the nervous system than meditating, box breathing, a whole bunch of other things. And so what we do then is as we're doing that, he recommended 5 minutes a day, but I've seen an effect with 3 breaths.
Yeah.
Can you feel
I
that
mean,
all?
you saw me within the second one. I closed my eyes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so that's a great breath. So you might call it straw breathing or something. You might not call it the physiological sighing, but so that's a really good thing that we could teach our clients, but also that we could be doing ourselves. So if we're
Do you
starting
know
to relax,
why, on a brain and nervous system level, it's calming? I don't. I have no idea. I don't know if you know.
well, part of it is it works with our relaxation response. So if we have an exhalation of 6 seconds or longer, that's enough time that our nervous system goes, oh, it's okay to relax.
Mm,
So the longer exhalation is helpful. I used to use box breathing a lot, but actually holding the breath intensifies what's going on.
hmm.
So a continuous breath is more helpful. And then the double inhale, we're getting lots of oxygen, and then we're getting a long period of time. Once people get used to the practice, you can easily exhale for 15 or 20 seconds without feeling any scarcity of breath. So the longer exhalations activate the parasympathetic nervous system, which helps
Right.
calm us, right?
Right. Cool.
So that's helpful. One of the things about the nervous system that I think is so interesting is if we look at how it was developed, it developed over millennia, and mostly people were in small hunter-gatherer groups. And some of those people probably had good eyesight, some had good hearing. And so if someone was like alert to danger, and anyone who didn't develop this didn't survive to pass on
Hmm.
their genes, right? So if someone's alert to danger, everybody in that small group would take their word for it, basically. So they'd see them stiffen or they'd see them get alert. And so we pick up anxiety from each other now in a way that's not helpful. Back
Hmm.
then, we were picking up somebody just got alert, there must be something going on. But now a lot of people are hypervigilant all the time.
Yep.
So if we are breathing in a regular way, that helps to calm our nervous system. And then the client can pick up calm from us instead of anxiety from us. And so that's a big part of, I think, what we're doing with somatic therapies is we're regulating our own nervous system and then hopefully developing enough capacity that if something happens in a session, that we can help the client with that without getting taken too off course. We have a
Hmm.
foundation then. As I've had that happen when I was working individually with people where somebody would say something, I'm like, oh, that really hit, that's really personal for me too, right?
Yeah.
And yet I was able to just breathe and kind of go, okay, I'll look at that later. And then just breathe and stay with them.
Hmm.
What I see so much is whether this is in friendship or in therapy is if someone can't stay kind of regulated, that's when we go into things like giving friends advice when they don't want it, or doing all those things that are not helpful for a relationship.
For
And
joy with Bing Bong as opposed to sadness.
yes, exactly. Yeah, you better feel better here. I had that happen in my own family. My older sister was like that. And we had a loss in the family. And the first thing she said was, well, you're going to have to find a way to get over this. I'm like,
Hmm.
okay, he died 2 days ago. Like,
Hmm.
it's not time for that, you
Yeah.
know? But but she also was very uncomfortable with her feelings,
Yeah.
and she couldn't stand knowing that this loss had happened. And so that's the way a lot of people are. And how are we going to gain the confidence
Hmm.
that we can stay with what's going on? And that's a big part of, I think, what happens in good therapy is that we have someone who's regulated, who can help us stay in the moment. We can have that non-judgmental attunement, that emotional
Hmm.
attunement, empathy, all that. And that opens up some space then for us. Maybe I can handle doing this for an hour a week or two, whatever,
Hmm.
like maybe I could actually afford to go in and feel that.
Yep.
But we need to have those experiences of safety in order for us to develop that confidence. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm talking about breathing and attunement. is bringing up just a couple weekends ago, I was assisting with a brain spotting training.
Mhm.
And as part of that, there was an odd number of students, and so I would step in for a lot of the practicums to be able to let them practice. And one thing I love about a lot of the somatic therapies now, brain spotting, somatic experiencing, EMDR as well, you
Mhm.
really get to experience it, right? So, like when you're doing the practicum, you're actually working on stuff. You're not making up a
Yeah,
fake thing or pretending to be a client. And
yeah.
so I was working with this student, and brain spotting is all about the body and all about attunement. And she was working on her stuff, and our breath had synced up. And I then became more intentional about breathing with her. And
Uh,
afterwards, in brain spotting, we call it backloading, but we were just kind of like debriefing and checking in. And she said to me, she was like, "It was so helpful to breathe with your breath, Jenny." And I was
uh,
like, "I was breathing with you, just so you know.
uh,
I was following you." It gives me
right.
chills right now thinking about it because she was like, "What?" And so,
Right.
this is a therapist who's learning how to do brain spotting, but it was a really powerful moment of her nervous system consciously and unconsciously realizing, like, oh, holy shit, I have some resources. And Jenny was
Yeah,
following me. I wasn't following her.
right, right. That's awesome. Well, and
Yeah.
Dr. Stephen Porges, who many of you know through polyvagal theory, has a quote about the end result of this kind of therapeutic work is to develop the capacity to feel safe in another's arms.
Yeah.
Definitely all about relationship. But first, we have to be able to feel safe in our own arms.
Hmm.
And that's something that we can all do. And I like that we can all do that because then we don't have to rely on somebody else wanting to do this work.
Yep.
And not everybody feels like it's worth it or like it's possible for them. A lot of people are just like, no, that's too much. I can maybe talk about it, but I don't think I can actually go in and feel that knot in my gut that feels like it's going to explode or whatever that might be. So a
Yep.
lot of the work that I do as well is a way of looking at thoughts. So sometimes a lot of the time we'll put the image of the thoughts on the wall on the other side of the room. So eyes open. If your eyes are closed, you're more likely to get flashed back into memory. And then look at it, colors and shapes and put it in a frame, look at the space on the outside. So that is bilateral brain stimulation like
Mhm.
EMDR. There's a lot of ways that work now. It just is great. And then also what's happening in the body. So how can we go in and I mean, that was a big part of my work when I was working individually with people and now as well teaching in groups, is what am I feeling in my body right now? Where is it? Why is it here?
Mm.
So when we have painful sensations in our body, or when we have an association of the sensation and then getting into traumatic memory, we often develop this kind of feeling that, well, it's here to hurt me.
Mhm.
Actually, it never is. It's some part of us that needs to be attended with or attuned with or just seen, a lot of inner child work,
Yep.
which is very familiar with people now. And so the talk therapy can be a really important part of therapy, and it's made so much more powerful by nervous system regulation and
Yes.
being in the body and helping people have the experience that it's safe enough to feel what's here. And that's
Mhm.
a that's a big thing, as we
It
know.
truly is. Yep.
Yeah, it truly is.
Yep.
Mhm.
And I also can just feel what a master you are at this, because your presence, your attunement to me, even just in this conversation, this interview, is so calming. And so for everyone who's watching, I think this is a beautiful demonstration of nervous system regulation in action.
It's true. And when we're not present with somebody, why is that? It's usually because we're thinking about something else.
We're
And
time
we might
traveling in our brain.
time traveling exactly. So we're in the past, we're in the future, but we're not here.
Mhm.
And I practice that. I practice it for decades now. And an example unfortunately, we've come to the end of our lake swimming lake swimming season here in Nova Scotia. Yesterday was the last time I think I'll get in. But about a month ago, I was in the water and I hadn't fully arrived at my swim. I was in the water, but I was still kind of thinking about something else. And all of a sudden, this fish jumped up ahead of me, like 10 feet ahead of me. I'm like, oh, that's right. I'm in the water.
That's where I am. Oh, right.
It just brought me right back into the moment, right? And it wasn't scary, but it was startling, you know?
Hmm.
And all through the summer, I would just look at the light on the water and feel the water in my body as I'm moving through the water and feel the sun on my head and if it was sunny. And there's so many things that we can pay attention to that help us to stay here. If
Hmm.
we're not here, why is that? Well, our nervous system has intervened basically and said it's either we're in a freeze or we're thinking about something else or catastrophic thinking and the inner critic, they are so powerful
Yeah.
and we might not want to go off somewhere else, but we do. And we see that with clients a lot of the time because on that side of the chair they're looking at something that's disturbing or traumatic or stressful, and so then they might go into a freeze or they
Hmm.
might get into a fight response, or often they'll just kind of dissociate and disconnect.
Yep.
Sometimes they'll go into fawning, right? And try and kind of make that better in that way. So those are, I think, really helpful things for therapists to know about and to see. I always notice, is the person breathing?
Mm.
And often I would say, are you breathing? And they'd be like, nope. Because that's what we do.
Yep.
If you are in a situation where there's a predator, you're going to be very still and you're not going to even move your body with your breath and you're not going to make any noise with your
Yep.
breath. And so when we think about that, and then if we've had situations through our life, especially chronically, where we didn't feel safe, which is so common,
Hmm.
then we learned that becomes our learned habit. And
Yeah.
so when anything a little bit stressful comes up, we're holding our breath, but we might just be holding our breath a lot of the other times too.
Yep.
Then that continuously signals to our nervous system that we're in danger. So taking a breath and letting our body relax signals it's okay to make some noise with my breath. It's okay
Hmm.
to let my body move a little bit. And I like some of the newer things like, or not, well, they're probably not newer, but I've learned them in the last 10 or 15 years, like standing up and doing a shaking practice, like
Yeah.
shaking tree. That's really helpful to release tension out of our body. But it's
Yep.
also a huge signal to our nervous system. It's safe enough for me to stand up and move my body and make some
Yep.
noise. So I think those kinds of things are really helpful to understand what are the signals that I'm getting from my body about safety and are they accurate?
Yep.
Because accurate neuroception is a really important thing. Otherwise, we're reacting for something that's not actually a threat, or we're underreacting. We're not
Hmm.
noticing we're in a
Right.
freeze.
When something really is dangerous.
Yeah, and like I've had that happen mostly in social interactions, relationships, where somebody will say something and I don't react. I
Hmm.
don't respond. And one person said, I kind of thought maybe you'd be happy hearing that. And I'm like, oh, yeah, of course I am. Right? And
Mm.
yet I was in a bit of a freeze at the time. And
Yeah.
so, I notice that when I'm out with friends or something, or am I really present? And so
Mm.
that practice, how do I know if I'm present? Well, I'm aware of my breath. I'm aware, for me, it's my upper back and mid back that tighten up. Some
Hmm.
people, they frown or they're clenching their teeth. And so if we can become aware, where do I hold my tension? And do I hold my breath if I'm tense? Just that, working with that. I was in a big city recently in Montreal, and I live on the eastern shore of Nova Scotia. It's not a big city out here. And the big city nearby is Halifax, but it's not Montreal. And as I was driving along, I'm noticing my shoulders are creeping up a little towards my ear. And then I would soften them, and then they would be back up, and then I'd soften them.
Hmm.
So I was experiencing not knowing where I was going, but also the drivers, there's a lot of them,
Yep.
right? And they're going really fast. And a lot of them were tailgating. And I'm like, this doesn't feel 100% comfortable. And I
Mhm.
taking care of myself because I wasn't during rush hour. So I was going in on the weekend and in the middle of the day, and I wanted to go and visit my granddaughter. So that was something I wanted to do, and I was fine to do it. But I really just noticed, and then when I got home, I was tired because I had
Mhm.
been expending all that energy in watching what was going on
Yep.
and keeping myself regulated.
Yep.
The practice. Yeah.
And, it's exhausting to constantly live in that state of
Yes.
arousal, either hyper or hypo. It also is exhausting to do the work, but once you get the work started, once you have that snowball accumulating and getting bigger and bigger, it
Yeah.
just becomes so much easier over time. And that becomes your new rhythm as opposed to always having your shoulders as earrings.
Yeah, exactly. It's a good way to put it. Well, and I just never experienced what it was like to have a relaxed body. I was
Yep.
always like that, and
Yep.
my mind was always going to the worst thing that could happen.
Yeah.
I'd be driving along and I'd be thinking, well, what if that car comes into my lane? Or what if, it's like there was no reason to think that that would happen, but that was just the level of trauma that was going on in
Yep.
my,
Exactly.
and it's a relief to not have that going on.
Yeah.
And one of the things that Deb Dana talks about too with the polyvagal is if we are in a fight, flight, freeze response, we actually don't have access to self-compassion and we don't
Hmm.
have access to compassion and connection with others. So if we can, especially as a therapist, but also as a human being, if we can just start to work with regulating our nervous system,
Yep.
that's such a powerful way to start because then it will gradually open up for us that we have the capacity then to stay with a more difficult story from a client or to stay with a friend who's going through a difficult time. And our nervous system doesn't respond well to being told what to do.
Right.
It only responds to experiences. So when we're sitting, talking with someone or in a client situation, one of the things that indicates safety for another person is our voice, our prosody.
Hmm.
So if you have a very tight throat, what you do if you're tense, your voice isn't going to signal safety. Your
Right.
voice is going to signal there's something wrong here. So in a way, it's such a powerful blessing to know all this because we're better for ourselves, we're better for each other, and we're better with our clients.
Yeah.
But also, it might feel like, well, great, now I have to do all this before I can be okay as a therapist. And it's not like we have to, like, nobody here is starting from scratch.
Right.
Everybody here has done some of this already. And then I think it's to bring it in more consciously. Like,
Hmm.
in addition to what is my client saying, what is their body saying? And I
Hmm.
know you do that kind of work as well. You have that approach as well. And it's so powerful. And I think that's the exciting thing is that people are really recognizing, yeah, I can't forget about the body.
Right.
That's where all this stuff is stored.
Yep.
And that's where it has to feel safe enough to be felt and come forward.
Exactly.
It's an exciting time, I think, to be a therapist.
I think so too. There's so much more creativity that is being accessed through a lot of these somatic and bottom-up approaches. I think therapists and clients are having such incredible results and outcomes. And so, I teach a lot about vicarious resilience, where we get to really soak up all the glimmers and the beautiful things in our work.
Yeah,
And so there's even more vicarious resilience accessible out there when we're doing this kind of stuff.
definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we have the experience, and so does our client.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
it's not really fair to expect friends and people in relationships to always have that calm, regulated presence with us. But it is fair to expect a therapist to have that.
Yep. Exactly.
And I think that's something that we can just learn and grow, and we don't have to be perfect at it in order for it to be good enough. We can just
Exactly.
start.
Exactly. So with that, tell us more about where people can find you and learn from you. I know you are doing so many beautiful things right now.
Yeah, I have a lot going on. I enjoy that. And one of the reasons I do part of what I do is because it's so helpful. And not everybody can afford to do individual therapy, but everybody can do this. So we're coming up to 10 years. Every day I do an online guided practice live, and it's at 8 a.m. Eastern. So all of this is on my website. My classes, my courses. I'm on Insight Timer live, as well as I have courses and guided practices on there. It's a meditation app, one of the leading meditation apps. And there's always a way to support ourselves. So one of the ways is listening to a guided practice. And there's so many of them. There's thousands of teachers on Insight Timer, but there's also on YouTube and Instagram and everywhere you can
Mhm.
find those things. But there's something special about doing it in community.
Mhm.
So the people that come to the morning practice, there's usually, 50 to 100, depending on the day. And a lot of those people have been coming every day for years. And so we
Mhm.
know each other. People are like waving, and it's like exciting to be together. So that's
Yep.
that feeling of I'm not alone in this. And then on Sundays, I do a class. It's also a free community class. The daily practices are free. And we pick a topic. Right now, we're working on attachment,
Mm.
secure attachment. And so I'll present something and do a somatic inquiry. So, somatic inquiry is just looking at a topic and feeling what's going on, using the tools like, framing a picture or being with a sensation. So, we do that for about 25 minutes, and then they go into small groups for half an hour of 3 or 4 people, and then we come back and talk about it
Mm.
as a bigger group. But one of the things consistently that people tell me over and over is it's the only place in their life where they can actually show up and just have an audience. And
Mm.
so it's a somatic mindfulness. So there's no kind of getting in other people's lanes, no giving advice. During the time when we're listening, we're just listening with our body. So,
Mhm.
how is that landing for me when that person says that? And then what do I want to share? And people are free to share or not share. I mean,
Mhm.
there's no expectation there. But over time, what everyone will say is, I thought I was the only one who felt that way. And here's all these other, and it's just random. You're with some people, it's a mix. And so there's like usually about 50, 40, 50 people. So you have a pretty good mix of people that you get to experience. We
Mhm.
have the experience of I can settle my nervous system and then I can decide what to say and I can say it and people are just going to receive it.
Yeah.
And that is such a powerful experience is
Yeah.
when we are received and not judged.
Yep.
Often when people listen to us, it's like, oh yeah, yeah, I know how to fix that. And then we get right into that, right? And then the other thing that I do is I teach on Yoga Farm, which is a big online yoga teaching place. I'm doing one this fall on Find Your Still Point, which is around
Mm.
spiritual practice. In January through the spring, I do yoga nidra. So it's all
Mm.
trauma informed yoga nidra, how to work with the nervous system. And then strong mind, resilient nervous system, similar kind of thing. So I do those courses. And then I write, and I have a weekly newsletter, and I do a lot of writing. I'm just about finished revising my book that I published in 2017 called Friends with Your Mind, How to Stop Torturing Yourself with Your Thoughts. And so I've expanded a little bit because of all the trauma knowledge and stuff that's happened in the last 8 years. But so that'll be out, I'm hoping, before Christmas as well. So I just have this
Cool.
really full life. I don't see people individually much anymore, but I really enjoy all of the work that I do with groups, and yeah, it's great.
Thank you so much for all you do. For everyone listening, we'll link to all of that in the description here. And please go and reach out to Lynn, go and drop into her groups, all of her beautiful offerings. And just as you've experienced alongside me, I mean, Lynn, you were just such an incredible presence and again like such a beautiful demo and an example of what it's like to for me to be experienced by someone who is regulated and who is doing that work.
Mm, I think it's so important, and I think it's something that we can all do with and for each other.
Yep.
But mostly the person who benefits the most from doing this nervous system work is ourselves.
Yep.
Because we're more present in our life, when we're present with other people, we walk outside and we enjoy the fresh air and the sun. We're not thinking about something else. And so just being here in this moment, that's how we live our life. And
Mhm.
that's how we enjoy our life. And when I think back, one of the reasons I talk really honestly about what's going on with me is because I was a mess. I had a really tough teen years. I had a family that were, good security around housing and food, but no emotional connection, no protection that way. And then I stumbled through my 20s and 30s, and then I found meditation, and then
Mhm.
I found this healing through this, and I'm just a completely different person now. My mind is settled. I can enjoy my life in a much different way because even if I get engaged or activated in something, I recognize it and then I know how to come back.
Yep,
It's such
exactly.
a blessing, that's for sure. And I've enjoyed talking with you too, Jenny. It's good to
Thank you. Thank you so much, Lynn.